Welcome to DevVenture with MTK, and this is the 57th live stream in our series of making a space shooter game. Now, at the end of our last session, we had a problem. There was a bug that kept on disrupting things, and we were in the process of first getting things to work, and I remember saying we will solve the problem here in this session if I didn't fix it before coming back over the weekend. And unfortunately, I couldn't get to it. As I mentioned before, I've got other projects to do, and things are busy this time of year. So you just have to bear with me, unfortunately. Now, I'm going to do another test run. Oh, I forgot to open up Perplexity. Fine. I'll open Perplexity. Then we can see what we were doing last, and then pick up where we left off. Can I just do one quick tiny little adjustment with my camera so that I fit better into the view? That's better. Now, so here we are. I'm just going to do a quick scroll to the bottom here. So we weren't getting the behavior we expected, even though we implemented everything properly, right? So here's the code you told me to add. Code. As you can see, I added a print statement to make sure the key press registered because it isn't doing anything. Even though the print statement appears when I press I, the interruption logic is not working at all. And the AI actor continues as if the key was never pressed in the first place. What do you think is causing this problem? This was the response. The key press is reaching enemy ship controller, so the issue is almost certainly in one of three places inside the override path. Either the manager is refusing the override because in override is already true, or the behavior key flee is not resolving in available behaviors, or the flee activates but immediately completes or fails in a way that you do not see, because the pattern resume path is not wired quite as expected. Given your earlier logs, the most likely culprit is 1 or 2. Alright? Now, please just ignore the update commit thing. I know it will probably bother some of you. It's bothering me as well. But I don't want to be jarring to the rest of you who aren't bothered by it. So I'm going to do my best to ignore it. Because if I press update, it's going to close commit, update commit, open commit, and that's going to be disruptive. So what I can do is I'm going to try and follow the instructions over here, move this to the side on the other monitor, then update commit over there while I'm busy following the instructions, and hopefully it will seem or appear seamless to you, right? So let's check this first, right? So step 1, check in override guard. So in start override behavior, you have function start override behavior, taking in the parameters, and then it's got this it returns void and in override. So if in override is true, then we print this message, NPC behavior manager, override request ignored, already in override, and return. If in override was accidentally left true, then every call to start override behavior will be ignored, right? So action temporarily add a print at the very top of start override behavior. Function start override behavior. We add a print message. NPC behavior manager start override behavior called with behavior name in override and then in override, right? run the game and start an attack pattern, then press I. If you see the override request ignored or already in an override, then in override is stuck in true, and the fix is to verify that if that in the flee completion path you always set in override to false, and that you actually reach that code, i.e. that flee emits behavior completed with behavior type equals flee and status completed or failed. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll go to start override behavior and copy this print statement. And then I'm going to update commit and do that change. So I need to go into NPC behavior manager, override behavior. Here we go. I need to add this in over here. Okay, and it looks like commit's also finished updating, right? Now we've put the print statement in place, and all that's left to do now is to run the game and see if it works. So we are still in testing seek behavior. I can run the scene, start the attack pattern, and press I. Okay, so as you could see, it's not saying anything really. It didn't say, where is it now? Here. Activated key interrupt manually, arrival behavior complete, and then it just starts doing arrival stuff. So it's not even printing the message that the override has begun. Right? So that lets me think whatever happens when I press the I key isn't actually calling the right functions. So let me just go to enemy ship controller and check under input for interrupt manually. Here we go. Here, start override behavior flee. Right? So this is not working. I'm going to, because I copied this, I'm going to paste it into commit, and we are going to get to the bottom of this. Right? So here is the output after the changes in step 1. As you can see, none of the print messages you mentioned are showing up. That means the logic after pressing I is not doing what we expect it to do. Here is the enemy ship controller.gd code. Enemy ship controller.gd. What can you tell me? Taking a while to process. Okay, so here we've got the results from Perplexity. The input path is working, but your override lane is never being entered or logged, which means the issues are inside npc behavior manager.start override behavior or on behavior completed, not in enemy ship controller. Given the log and code, there are two main signs. Activate key, interrupt manually, prints, so input runs, and there is no print like enemy ship controller manually starting flee override for ship 0 in the log you posted, even though that is inside the if manager block. So one of these is true. Enemy ships at 0 has no npc behavior manager child, so ship.hasNode npc behavior manager is false, or the as type npc behavior manager cast is failing, returns null, so the inner if manager is false. That means the code inside that block is not running at all. The quick checks to run, make these two small changes to the input to confirm. Then run again and press I so we can check. If you see ship has no child named npc behavior manager, then we know that that in the scene the node under enemy ship is likely named something else. Either rename the node to exactly npc behavior manager, or update the path to match the actual name. So that could probably be it. Let's just do this quick check. If we go into pirate enemy, it should have an npc behavior manager. There it is. That's the problem. It's not named correctly. So let's rename it. So I'm going to make these changes anyway, but we know it was this because it wasn't named npc underscore behavior underscore manager like that. So I'm going to make these changes and then we're going to run the game and we're going to see if it fixed it. Okay, so I'll move this over to the side like I do and go back to enemy ship controller input. And then under here, for now, ship is enemy zeros, then we make a print statement here saying interrupt manually enemy ships at 0 is ship. If ship and ship has node npc behavior manager, then we print this statement here. And then get node. And then we print this. After that, Oh, I see. So if ship has node, create the manager node before this. So here. Like that. Okay. And then if manager then we do a print statement here. If manager danger position is that, then we have a print statement there, manager.start, and then we have else statements as well. Okay, that's new. So now we're saying else print this, else print that. Okay, now we can run the code and see if it works. If I go back here into the 3D space and I run the game, now if I press the space bar, it should hopefully work. If I press I, yeah, there we go. It didn't pause the behavior though. So I'll copy the code and bring back perplexity. Alright, so here's what I wrote. That fixed it. It was the nomenclature of the NPC behavior manager node in the pirate enemy scene. And then just ignore the misspelling of behavior node there. It was named something else, so I corrected the spelling and added the underscores. There is now a successful interruption, but the attack sequence continues simultaneously, which is not what we wanted. It should have been paused. Here is the output from the last run. And that's the output there. Let's figure this out, please. The manual override is working, but the pattern is not equally paused. Is not actually paused, my mistake. Is not actually paused because current behavior arrival is still running when you start flee, and on behavior completed treats arrival as a normal pattern step instead of we are in an override right now. Ignore this. What is happening in that log? When you press I, while arrival is still active, NPC behavior manager, starting behavior arrival, activate key, interrupt manually, NPC behavior manager, start override behavior called with flee in override equals false. NPC behavior manager, starting override behavior flee for ship 0, flee behavior activated for ship 0. Arrival then finishes and emits its normal completion signal. Then the manager responds by starting to shoot. And so now you have flee override active and the shoot pattern active at the same time. The override lane only has special handling when the completed behavior type is flee. For other behavior types, your on behavior completed still advances the pattern, which is actually what you see. The minimal fix. Ignore pattern completions while in override. For phase 1, the simplest way to pause the pattern is while in override is true. Ignore any completion events from non-flee behaviors. That means do not advance sequence index or start new pattern behaviors when in override is true and behavior type is not flee. Change your on behavior completed in NPC behavior manager GD like this, showing only the relevant parts, and that's the change. What does this do? If flee override completes, restore the save pattern and continue as before. If any other behavior completes while in override is true, the manager logs it and then returns without advancing the pattern or starting the next behavior. So when you press I during arrival, flee will start, arrival completes, but its completion is ignored while in override. And the attack pattern is effectively frozen at arrival finished, waiting for the next step. And then when flee later completes, the override block runs, restores sequence index and pattern, and calls start next behavior, which advances to the appropriate next step. This gives you the behavior you wanted for phase 1. The current pattern is paused during flee and resumes afterwards without the pattern steps progressing in the background. Okay, so let's go ahead and make those changes, right? So the first thing we need to do before this, well, no, nothing before this, just do this, right? Now what I'll do is I'm going to move this to the side like I normally do and make those changes, okay? So I'll open up Godot Engine, go back into the script editor, then in NPC behavior manager GD on behavior completed. Here it is. If enemy ship ID is not enemy ship.id, then return. Print this message is right. If in override and behavior type is flee, then do the following. In override is false, current behavior is null. Save pattern, if save pattern is not an empty string, then the current pattern is save pattern, and the sequence index is the saved sequence index. Then we do this print statement here and call start next behavior, else we print this message. Okay, then we clear the saved state. That's right. Ready for pattern, emit, make the print statement and return. override lane handling ended. And now here's the new code. Okay, here we go. We add this block of code in between, like this. Okay, so if in override and behavior type is not equal to flee, then we print NPC behavior manager ignoring completion of behavior type while in override, and then return. And then there's the normal pattern code. Okay, that looks like it. It was literally just this small little thing here. Hopefully that fixes it. I don't know. But we can try. So let's go ahead and give it a try. We'll run the scene. Start the attack pattern. Call the interruption. It will ignore. And it begins the attack pattern. Seems to work. Find a random waypoint, call ignore, it flees. Okay, so let's go for waypoint 8. Okay, and now we call it a flee. It does its flee movement. It returns to its current behavior, and boom. Okay, now we'll tell it to perform attack pattern. Now do a flee and resume your attack pattern and fire your 5 shots, and then off you go. Yeah. So that seems to have fixed it. Thank you for the help. That seems to have fixed the problem. But now there is a minor issue with the test attack pattern function code. When the flee interruption terminates too close to the targeted waypoint or to the target, the AI actor begins firing before it has a clear line of sight I.E. Guaranteed hit. This results in all in some or all of the projectiles missing the target, and the enemy ship begins to flee after the 5 shots as expected, but without causing the desired damage, even though the target is stationary. Excuse me. Let's make some modifications to the code and ensure the enemy ship only fires once it knows the shot will make an impact. Especially, well, not especially, but this is critical for stationary targets. Okay, so right now the gun happily fires as soon as shoot starts, regardless of whether the ship is aligned and has clear line of sight. So early shots after a close flee can miss. And this fix is to gate the trigger shot behind an aim/alignment plus a line of sight check, and only decrement shots remaining when those checks are passed. So what to add conceptually? In behaviorshoot.gd, add a minimum alignment threshold. Excuse me. Compare the ship's forward versus direction to target, right? And then compare, or rather require that the dot product of those two is greater than or equal to 0.98. Okay, so for those of you who are either unfamiliar or rusty on what the dot product is, it's a measure of alignment, right? So if you've got two vectors, you do a dot product on them to test how parallel they are, right? So if I've got something like this, they're not that parallel now, are they? Because there's an angle between them, right? But if they are exactly on top of each other, they are collinear or aligned, right? And so that dot product would then equal 1, right? Whereas a dot product that equals 0 is exactly perpendicular, right? 90 degrees. And -1 means parallel but in the opposite direction. So so the enemy is exactly parallel towards the target, but he's shooting backwards, right? And that's also not what we want. We want it to be as close to 1 as possible. And so that's what the dot product is going to do here. And then ensure that the line of sight is clear. Either you already has line of sight to target, or you add a physics raycast towards the target node. And then only when it's within range, has a clear line of sight, alignment is good, and shot timer is greater than or equal to shot interval, then fire and decrement shots remaining. Right? So that seems like a reasonable and good approach to do things. So concrete changes in behaviorshoot.gd. Below assumes you already have a target node, a max range, trigger shot, aim at target, and has line of sight from earlier versions. Add an alignment threshold export near the top of behaviorshoot.gd. We export this minimum alignment dot product, and add a small helper function to check alignment, which is this thing. Update your process shooting logic, which is this change here, and then key behaviors to change, right? Or the key changes of the behavior. So let's just go through each of these one by one. And once that's done, we can do emergency flee close to the sweet spot of our target, and make sure that it comes back towards the stationary target, hits the sweet spot, aims properly, then starts shooting. okay? Because it's a stationary target, there really is no need to rush. Well, there kind of is, but we can add that logic in later, right? We can add a boolean like is under threat or something, right? So if the pirate knows it's being attacked by a defender, or when the AI actor knows it's under threat by an enemy, to be more general, right? So if you're a defender and you're under attack by pirates, or if you're a miner and you're under attack by pirates, or if you're a pirate and you're under attack by a defender, or however it ends up working out, right? If the AI actor is under threat by any enemy, right? At that time, it becomes risky to stop. You get what I'm saying, right? To stop moving becomes risky. And as a result of that, you want the AI actor to keep moving. And so that's when less precise firing becomes a reality, right? It can't afford to stop and aim properly, and so it just shoots as soon as it thinks it can, right? As soon as it's able to, as soon as it's even slightly within some kind of cone of probability that it will hit the target, that's when it shoots. It's like, okay, we got a rough shot, let's make it, right? Or what they call a pot shot. It starts taking pot shots and does maneuvers to avoid threat and danger. Because standing still is a problem, because as soon as it stands still, the likelihood of being struck by an enemy's projectile increases dramatically, right? And of course, that's not what you want, right? You want your bots to have, or your AI actors to have, self-preservation instincts. But enough of that. Let's make the change Let's make the changes, right? So we'll go into shoot in the script. It's under behavior shoot on the top. Type behavior shoot. Okay. We'll add a exported variable, and we keep the exported variables very close to the very top of our script. That is just a preference of mine. It's not necessarily a good practice, although you can see why it's a good idea to put exported variables close to the top, right? And to group them, right? So you have the non-exported variables, and then you've got your exported variables, and you've got your onReady variables, and you want to group those all together, right? So all onReadies together, all exporteds together, all normal variables together, and you keep them in blocks like I've done here, right? So here you can see new variables. They don't really have their documentation comments yet, but they are not exported. And so at the top here, I'm going to add exported variables, right? So at export variable, and we're going to call this minimum alignment dot product, and it's going to take on the property of a float, and we're going to move this over to column 50 and set that to be 0.98, right? And then we'll make a comment here to make a mention that 1.0 is a perfect lineup. Well, it is perfectly aligned. Perfectly aligned. And 0.98 is roughly 11 degrees cone of probability. Okay, so that's the change. And then the second change we need to make is to add a small helper function that checks for that alignment, right? So somewhere down here, very bottom, we'll make a documentation comment here to say helper function used to check alignment before shooting at stationary targets. right? Then we'll just add this code in over here. And if we remember, types are on column 30 and assignments are on column 50. So let's go ahead and make those changes. So this one, along with this one, along with that one, all go to column 30. And then this one lines up with that one, which all lines up at 50. Right? Then we save that. And we go to the process function and update the logic there too. So if we go over here, then if not is active, or not enemy ship, or not gun system, or not target node, then return. Then if target node is not that's strange. If target node and not is instance valid target node, complete shooting failed, and the reason is the target was lost. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy the target, the process function. And I'll paste it here. Okay, so I gave the code from my existing process functions code, and I said, look, why is your function so different to mine? Are you sure about your changes? Please double check and let me know so we don't hit errors down the line. Let's see what it says. Your current process function is fine structurally. It does most of the work. The only things missing for only fire when the shot will hit are an alignment check before firing and avoiding the double has line of sight to target call. Everything else can stay as is, so here's the minimal safe patch to your existing function. Add the export, add the helper function, and here's the minimal change to your process function. Replace your current process function with this version, only small changes, and comments are marked. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy it because it's going to go faster, and then we'll just do the alignment ourselves, right? The column alignments. So that's the process function. We'll paste it. Paste it over here. Make sure that there are 3 lines of separation between functions. Okay. Now, I'm just going to go through this and organize things, right? So, take a moment to do that. variable target assignment is at 50, then this is at 30, and this is at 50. Okay. Again, set this to 30 and 50. Put this over here, line those up together. Here we go. Set this to be the same as that. Move this to 30. Move that to 50. Yeah, seems good. Okay. Fine. Now let's go ahead and test it, right? So that's the minimal changes that it was recommending. What changed versus your version, and then this keeps your burst logic exactly intact, just with a more strict only shoot when we are really on target gate, which should prevent the close range post flee misses and on stationary waypoints, right? So let's go back to testing seek behavior now and give it a run. So we'll call the attack pattern. It's going to try and do the alignment, and then we'll call the emergency flee. It'll do its flee, then resume, do another flee just to stress it out. And then it's going to do another arrival. It's going to line up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then off it goes. Amazing, right? That's so cool. It did its job, and I'm so happy. And just on time too. Look, we are nearly close to, well, never mind. Never mind. We still have 10 minutes, so we're fine. Then there's one more thing that I wanted to do. Hopefully we can get to it before the end. But if we don't, let me do our standard admin messages now. Thank you so much to Cubes, our junior DevVenturer. Your support means a lot. Okay, so the rest of you, you can go and visit coffee.com/mtkdev and view the membership tiers there, right? Now the membership tiers are referred to as DevVenturers, right? So like adventurers, development adventure is a DevVenture. So someone who embarks on a DevVenture is a DevVenturer. And so those of you who support me as a member on Coffee will be regarded as DevVenturers, and the rest of you are my audience, right? So that term DevVenturer is a special reserved term for those who are members on my Coffee page. And Cubes is currently a junior DevVenturer, which is the middle tier. So you've got interns at the, the entry level, junior, and then senior DevVenturers at the top, right? And each of the DevVenturer tiers have special perks. Among them is access to role-restricted categories on my Discord server. right? Now, you are all welcome to join the Discord server, and that's open to anyone. It's a community on Discord. The link is in the description of this video and all the previous live streams I've done. You are welcome to join, and I hope to see you there soon. But there are categories of channels in that server which are restricted by role for those who are DevVenturers, right? So coffee membership supporters. If you can't afford to do a membership right now, that's fine. You are welcome to do a one-time donation if you can afford that. And if you can't afford that even, then why not support the channel in other ways, like liking this video and subscribing to the channel and sharing the link with others? Because if you can't support me right now, maybe someone you share it with can, right? And then also comment, engage with the videos, right? Tell me what you think. Is there something that I'm doing that I might be able to do a little bit more efficiently? Or maybe you can suggest a different way of doing something that I hadn't considered and Perplexity hasn't suggested to me, right? Or perhaps you can think of something in the, in the way that I'm designing this game that I hadn't considered, or maybe I have considered and I haven't mentioned it. And if you bring it up, then I can say, oh, I actually have thought of that, and here's why I decided not to go with it. Let's have a discussion. The other thing you can do, of course, is join the Discord server and engage with the community there, right? And in all these ways, you are supporting the channel, right? And I appreciate all of it. I appreciate all of the support in all its different forms, and I welcome it very much. So I hope to see you in Discord, and to those of you who support my channel in whatever way you support, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now, back to the content, right? So there's something I wanted to do before we go on to phase 2 of the interrupt emergency behaviors, right? I want to mention to Perplexity that not right now, but we do need to save it for later, that there will be what do I call it? An impetus? You guys know what an impetus is? I-M-P-E-T-U-S. It's a motivating force, right? Impetus means to have a motivating force, like a bee in your bonnet almost, or something to spur you into doing it, right? So when someone said, oh, they egged him on, they egged him on, or they taunted him, pushed him, peer pressured him to do something, that was an impetus to make him do that thing, right? So we need to make an impetus for our AI actor to keep moving when under threat. So the threat of an enemy attack is an impetus to keep moving rather than to stop and line up your shot and take your time, right? So we need to make that clear, right? So we still need to consider the case when an AI actor is, in quotes, under threat by another, or by an enemy, right? So by an enemy. In this case, stopping and checking alignment is not an option because it will increase the chances of being hit by enemy fire dramatically. This is not crucial for implementation right away, since there isn't really a test ready for this case. but I want to record it so it isn't forgotten and we can revisit it later. For now, let's focus on phase 2 of the current work. You mentioned we are on phase 1, so I assume there is a phase 2. Yes, that future under threat case is noted. In that mode, the shoot behavior will need a looser alignment or predictive fire model, so the ship can keep dodging instead of stopping to line up perfect shots. That can be layered on later once you have hostile firing back. Hostile AI firing back, right? So for the current work, there is a clear phase 2 for the override system. The remaining flee or override phases, here's the compact view of what is still ahead for this feature set, right? Phase 2 is real obstacle-driven overrides. Right now, the flee override can only be triggered manually with the interrupt manually key. Phase 2 is to add a simple danger sensor per AI ship, like a spherical area 3D or several raycast nodes in front of the ship, and these detect non-destructible collision objects like asteroids or mining objects, etc. And when a sensor reports that an obstacle is within the danger radius, then we call start override behavior on that ship's manager. We let the flee run and then resume the current pattern via the override lane. This phase gives you the behavior you originally described, where patterns that auto-pause, patterns that auto-pause when a non-target obstacle is too close, and then resume once clear. And then in phase 3, which is later, we add robust multiple obstacle avoidance. Once phase 2 works, we make flee smarter about choosing its direction when there are multiple obstacles. So the simple version, tweak danger radius, safety radius, and deflection angles. The more advanced version, a few forward raycasts in candidate flee directions to pick the least obstructed one, or a max duration failsafe so it does not flee forever. Future note, under threat shooting mode. When you have AI that can be attacked, add a threat mode flag or parameter to behavior shoot for non-threat tests. Keep the strict line of sight and tight alignment gating, and in threat mode, relax alignment and maybe allow firing while still rotating, so the ship does not pause its evasive motion. If you are ready, the next concrete step for phase 2 can be designing a small area 3D and script for obstacle danger sensor and the minimal signal start override behavior wiring for a single ship, and then generalizing it. Unfortunately, just doing that one last prompt took up the last few minutes. So I'm going to close the live stream off over here. Thank you so much to everybody for your support, for your attention, and for your time. And I'll see you in the next live stream.